welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us again this week. I'm Jenna Morton.
And I'm Tosh Taylor. And on today's episode today, we are talking about something that really gets me just like amped right up. I'm so very excited. My love for the Fundy, Albert County region in New Brunswick cannot be denied, and we don't try to keep that quiet.
I don't think it can be contained either. You're just like,
no, I know. I'm bursting at the seams. So you're about to find out why. We're about to speak with the executive director of the Friends of Fundy Foundation, Micha Fardy, and she is about to tell us about this great program that she and the Friends of Fundy and many other people have been putting into place. It is called the Upper Bay of Fundy Project, charting a sustainable path for rural communities. So Micha, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. As you both, I also really like talking about the rural Upper Bay of Fundy region and the great communities that make up that space. So this is really great. I'm glad we could connect. Okay,
so Micha, why don't we get started with explaining what that long title is that I just said. What is the long and short of it, and what does it mean for us?
So the rural Upper Bay of Fundy regional destination development process, it is long. It's essentially about doing destination development for the communities that make up the rural area of the Upper Bay of Fundy region. So we're looking at Hillsborough down the 114 through Hopewell, Riverside, Albert, Alma, because of those connector roads that are finally developed from St. Martin's and Sussex and the Fundy Trail Parkway, including Sussex in this process, as well as St. Martin's. So these communities that have, been hosts to 3 provincial parks and 1 national park, and a number of amazing, vistas and trails and other, artisanal experiences. That's really the focus of going through a destination development process. And what makes this very unique for our region is that really it's like the first ever community-led process. So since actually spring of 2021, and then we really got work started in the fall of 2021, bringing together tourism operators, elected municipal officials, residents, and managers and nonprofit organizations to sit and not only lead the process, but also develop it, building off of some great programs that our government partners, which are ACOA and the province of New Brunswick, the Department of Tourism, Heritage and Culture, that they've been, using with communities for some time now. And they've been really open and supportive in us actually doing something that is very unique to our communities because of our unique situation. Certainly our ecosystem is very unique, and how these communities, particularly Alma and St. Martin, certainly, but now broader, again, as I said before, host hundreds and thousands of people coming through the area over the busy summer season. So we also are communities that are stewards in the UNESCO Fundy Biosphere Reserve, or the UNESCO Fundy Biosphere Region now, it is known as well as where those two overlap, which is a very unique attribute in St. Martin's, the Stonehammer UNESCO Geopark, and also the UNESCO Fundy Biosphere Region. I think it's one of the only places in Canada, I believe, where that happens, and my understanding is also in North America. So there's a lot of really wonderful attributes and opportunities to build community around that. One of the cornerstones of the entire process, because eventually in May, we do want to be presenting a strategic plan to move forward on the recommendations in terms of the regional destination development. A unique aspect, again, is that communities are at the core of this work. And one of the ways we're ensuring that, and also building it into the process and the plan that will move forward is using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a guide to this work. So that would also be reflected from a regional perspective, individual communities, and then there's things that as even individuals and residents we can really identify with in the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's it in a nutshell. in terms
big
of
nutshell.
kind of the what and the how. Exactly. Yeah. There's got to be 100 jumping off points from there.
How unusual is it for the people you're speaking with around the table on this process to have this opportunity to really interact in this way and to come up with something that's not, based just in one location, but in a broader region like this?
Well, I think from the very beginning, kind of understanding that, we collectively have to build a learning, really have a learning agenda in terms of how we're working together. So early meetings was about creating a common understanding of what it was we collectively wanted to achieve. Hearing from all those different perspectives that are sitting at the kind of the working group table really helped get specific on what certain issues may be and how certain communities relate to a particular issue, depending on the community, the size, the location, its role in supporting tourism, its role in supporting communities that support tourism. There's, one issue can have a number of different perspectives to it. And so that was really kind of built into the process from the very beginning. And it certainly helps with every conversation that we have for the working group to kind of bring back and think about, okay, how does that now change the way we talk about this piece, and how are we now being inclusive of this perspective? There's just trying to think again. I think from there, because Tosh and I were chatting about this just a little earlier before we started. Because we're building off of some great learning and work that our provincial partners have done, this process actually doesn't exist. So we're creating it as we go. As I mentioned, it's great to have partners, our funding partners, to be learning along with us. And we're about, the past few months has been learning a lot about, as we talked about, the Sustainable Development Goals. But we've also taken a look, I think we had 16 or 18 previous reports that had been done on different communities or the region at large or attractions in the communities, or, there was a lot. So we did a deep review of all of those and kind of cataloged, okay, here was the intent on these particular studies. This was what the vision was. This was the focus. We kind of put all the recommendations, and we went back as far as 1996 was the first report that we started to look at, and reviewed all of them right up to, actually the most recent one would be the Fundy Trail Parkway Master Plan. And then right prior to that would have been the St. Martin's, I think their structural plan, but combined all of those recommendations, and I believe there's over 570 in total. So then really, theming those up. Okay, what has been a part of these development discussions over the past 3 decades, or 2 decades, and what's worked, what's progressed, what hasn't, and I think even more importantly, together talking about, okay, why hasn't it? There's great ideas. There's been great work, great reports, great. So it's not about saying what's come before, didn't work or wasn't good. It's great stuff there. Let's really try to get a better understanding of why some things were able to move forward and why some things still haven't. What's going on with that? That's a big piece of kind of what we want to bring back. We've done a lot of the pre-work now, and so in a couple of weeks, we'll, thank goodness, because we have new new public health guidelines that is going to facilitate this, but being able to go back out to communities and share kind of what we've learned, and then say, based on this, let's have a discussion around what this can mean for regional destination development. In addition to that kind of review of previous reports and recommendations on things that could be taking place, we've done another, they call it an asset inventory. So looking at everything from natural assets, cultural assets, our amazing tourism operators, food and beverage, accommodation. And we do that in partnership. We have 3 chambers in the area, in this region, 2 tourism associations. Our provincial partners had certain data. It's trying to figure out, let's get it all as up to date as possible in a format that we can actually embrace, look at, and utilize, not just to have in a report, but to help guide the decision making, moving forward as well. So we've taken all of those things and we're going to kind of ground proof them with the communities. And then we've also placed them on maps, because it's certainly important to know what and where those assets are located, but also how do they interact? How do they relate? When we think of investment in the region, what areas are we very strong in, and what areas, might we look to do some more investment, or even have a conversation around why investment isn't happening here? Like, what are those other pieces that might be needed? Just about to finalize a digital footprint assessment. So really getting an understanding of how people are finding out about, we can say us, like this region, and what message is this region sending back? Is that what we want? How do we want to make that better? Is that the right message? Is it aligned with a provincial voice? Or are we getting as much leverage out of it as possible? So these are all conversations that are to come. But we really felt we needed to bring that information in, understand it ourselves. So then when we have community conversations, there's information that we're not just asking for a shopping list of what should we do. It's, okay, here's what our region looks like from all these different perspectives. How does that influence the conversations that communities are able to have? So yeah, I think that's, and when we say community conversations, it's very much, can be in small group, it can be municipal focused, it can be with those different nonprofit organizations. There will be, hey, we're gathering at this community space. If you're comfortable, come join us here. We are trying to build in, so we've done a lot of hybrid meetings over the past year, thanks to COVID. So getting a little bit more adept at that. So it's really a more inclusive and connective experience, as opposed to listening in on a Zoom, which we've done a lot of. And then I think the other so it'll be coming out in various methods. We've put together just a nice entry point survey to really get a sense of how our local communities feel about tourism. So it'll be coming out and connecting Alberta County in the March issue, and it'll be sent out through all of the municipalities to their email lists. It's a nice, short, simple kind of survey email. I think it probably takes around eight or 9 minutes. And we're going to keep that open for a period of time, again, so we could constantly inform and shape our discussions that we're having with stakeholders throughout the region. So we have a guiding practitioner, Lisa Rabluk, who is out of Quispam-Sis, and so Lisa's been supporting the working group conversation and how we're learning together to bring this information forward. And then Lisa will be taking all of the outputs from the stuff that we hear back and learn, and then she'll be putting the report together that we will have completed in May. So hopefully we'll have a draft to go out to stakeholders at the end of April.
So you had mentioned earlier, and I mean, it's quite obvious to anybody that's from here, this is the first time that Alma, St. Martin's, and Sussex are really getting a chance to work together. because it's the first time that they've been connected, and it takes people like you to help put these things together. So thank you for that. But also, what are, out of, our area and those two, do you find there was like an overlying similarity with what, the main priority is, or the main thing that's being missed?
Well, I think I think it can probably influenced by a few things. We know that from a tourism perspective, our urban partners, our provincial partners want to be marketing this incredible region around these incredible experiences. So, and for sure, so when we start to kind of peel back, what does that mean? Communities have, they're hosting these experiences, and there's capacity issues that need to be addressed, and every community has different levels of capacity in different areas. And a rural, the disbursement of resources in rural areas, that looks different than disbursement of resources in, more densely populated urban areas. So, these types of things we feel need to be taken into consideration when we're doing planning around the communities who are hosting these, basically these great products that are turned into this amazing Bay of Fundy experience. One of the biggest motivators for, taking this approach and, spending the time to go through all of this previous stuff, and then really rethinking how the best vehicle to move forward in is actually constantly re-injecting resources back into the communities that need to support these great experiences, is to be a better partner, a strong partner with our urban counterparts. We're a demand generator for these urban areas. And, I think collectively, we all want to be representing and showing the very best of the region. And we need really strong communities to help tell that story, to support the businesses that support those products and that deliver on those experiences. So that interconnectedness is definitely, there's commonalities there, but somehow how that plays out, sometimes I should say how that plays out in communities can look very different, particularly when there's very large attractions that are provincial attractions, that are throughout these communities. So I think, that underlying piece of, we want to be able to deliver on those great experiences, and it needs to be beneficial and really regenerative for these communities who have hosted this whole tourism, whether it's individual products or experiences in this region. Then we need to be the ones who are supporting it to come together, because for it to develop over a long term and to really beyond sustainable, but really ensure that this region can be host to world-class experiences, but also be regenerative in its approach to how it welcomes people, the communities have to be at the center of it. We need to be able to access the knowledge, the expertise, the cultural awareness that representatives of the stakeholder groups, that does come from residents, that does come from tourism operators who are leaders in, whether it's adventure or culinary or historic, they're leaders in the work that they do. It requires nonprofit organizations also supporting that, so information can flow and it be accessible to the rest of the community. Working together is critical to be able to tell a common story, and it's not the same story, right? There are so many amazing stories from St. Martin's all the way through, because these communities have played supportive roles to one another in the past for a number of different reasons. So there's a unique story to be told from each of these communities that can also be then transcribed through products and experiences, but it comes from the communities themselves. So it's just trying to reposition, because that's a lot more than just marketing, right? We can't get to the great marketing piece until we do this work that's very centered beforehand. So it's exciting. And sometimes it's really daunting. And then,
but it is, you're right. It's the very important work that you have to do. If you don't stop and understand those stories and the interconnectedness, you can't jump to the marketing piece and expect it to work.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I think we've had some amazing, nonprofit organizations holding up some really important work and doing some great stuff over the years, like the Albert County Tourism Association, the St. Martin's Destination Development, like the three chambers, all three chambers have come really to the forefront now, really being able to get a deep understanding of what does it mean to support the membership, to really look at all the variations of what a visitor economy's local economy looks like seasonality. That makes a difference, right? Like, it's not something that we kind of think about on the side. It's the rhythm of the local economy. So, and if we decide we want to change that, then okay, let's really understand what impacts that and all the things that also need to be considered as we shift to maybe a more full, year-round thriving economy, and tourism being the vehicle for that. I mean, there's certainly many businesses that are doing great work all year round, but understand that we're looking through a tourism lens at this, for this piece. Yeah.
So we have to wrap up the show already. But I want to know before we go, first of all, where are people going to find more information about this? But Micha, what's like, do you have an end game? You know what I mean? Like what does the goal look like at the end of
You
this?
have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
What's your end game?
So this is a 2-phase project, right? So pretty much 2 years. Phase 1 will wrap May, because then we will have that strategic planning piece with the recommendations. Phase 2 is about that early implementation of those plans. Now, what's really, again, unique about this process, oftentimes the strategic plan comes through and the next step is we need to go find resources to implement the strategic plan. We've built that second year piece. I mean, it's not going to overtake it all, but that second piece, that there's dollars and other resources there for implementation, so we can start to get the ball rolling on areas that have been identified as priority. So that's there's the first end game, and then the second end game would be really determining what's required after year 2 into year 3, and that's going to be tons of work. We do have and work that shouldn't be just on the backs of volunteers. Volunteers are amazing, and we need additional resources to support volunteers. So we do have, there is a Facebook page, and it's on that press release right in front of you, Tosh.
Okay, great.
Right
I'll
at the
get
bottom.
it. Yep.
If you could read that out. And I always get the website page wrong too. I think I
got that for you too. It's
awesome.
ruralfundyregiondevelopment.com. And then you can also find the Facebook page at facebook.com/ruralfundyregiondevelopment. And I'm going to go like that right now.
We're going to add all that to the show notes as well, so it's easy for people to find. If you're listening and you're trying to go, what was that? Just come back and find the show notes. It'll be there.
And we'll start pushing it out more and more and more now because of the surveys. Every time we have new information, documents that we find intriguing are on that webpage. So that's not a permanent webpage. It is only going to be, it's there to help with accessibility to information, transparency, people, a quick place to go to with like, what are they talking about? So, we could strongly encourage folks to share things that are interesting to them on both of those mediums as well.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
I'm super pumped, Micha, and thank you for spending the time to explain it a little bit more to everybody. There are, like you alluded to in the beginning, some big things happening, especially in Albert County or Region 42 or whatever it's called now. So
Entity 42.
Which we're really Entity 42.
Yeah.
But we actually, somebody had asked earlier today on Facebook, like, how does that impact this regional development process? We're really seeing it as some great opportunity. That's 3 regional service commissions that are now connected to this region, and it doesn't impact tons of that work. It doesn't. This is also a way that another way communities can really start be sure that they're maintaining and sharing their identity. Like there's So we're looking at it as a great opportunity for some really cool partnerships moving forward. And we also know it's a really difficult time for elected officials to manage through this. So we actually keep our fingers crossed and send good vibes to them all the time, because that's not easy. That's a fast timeline.
That's a very fast timeline. Agreed. All right. Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you. This was fun. Talk to you later.